afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Lunch and Learn, a partnership series between the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights and the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. My name is Kyla Hannington, and I'm the Public Outreach and Engagement Division Chief with the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights, the county's civil and human rights education and enforcement agency. With me today as co-hosts are Tiana Davis, the Outreach Specialist with the Office of Human Rights, and Dr. Audrey Lau, the Adult and Senior Services Program Specialist with the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. We are so excited to be joined today by Brooke Kidd and Camille Kashaka from Joe's Movement Emporium, here to talk about creativity as a hard skill. I'm going to take a couple minutes and just introduce you to both of our special guests before they take over and talk to us about creativity as a hard skill. Brooke Kidd is the Executive Director and co-founder of Joe's Movement Emporium, and she's a dance artist, choreographer, and arts education advocate. She received her BA in International Relations and Dance, Anthropology and African Studies, and an MA in Dance with the thesis Revitalizing Community Through Dance from American University. For more than 30 years, Ms. Kidd has designed arts programs to engage community, produced large-scale performances, and presented work through the region. She received the Alan Kriegsman Award from Dance Metro DC for Lifetime Achievement and an Individual Artist Award in Choreography from the Maryland State Arts Council. Brooke served as the Mount Rainier City Council, on the Mount Rainier City Council from 2001 to 2003. She's been honored as the Maryland State Arts Advocate of the Year in 2015, Prince George's County Chamber of Commerce Business Leader of the Year in 2015, and Gratitude Award in 2018. Brooke is a member of Leadership Greater Washington Class of 2017. She has launched and directed a number of projects with broad community stakeholders from Maryland, such as Joe's project Mapping Racism in partnership with the Hyattsville Community Development Corporation, which documented the historical and present-day impact of restrictive deed covenants in Brentwood and North Brentwood. So Brooke, it is awesome to have you back with us. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
And Camille Kashaka currently serves as a managing director for Joe's Movement Emporium and Creative Zootland. She is excited to be contributing to the broad and powerful community-focused cultural and artistic impact of these institutions. She is the former executive director of Motor House in Baltimore, Maryland, interim managing director of Hattiloo Theater in Memphis, Tennessee, and director of the Anacostia Arts Center in Washington, D.C. Camille received her BFA from Howard University in Theater Administration and her master's from American University in Arts Management. It is with this specific blend of cultural, artistic, and professional experience that she hopes to add to the eclectic cultural ecosystem in Prince George's County. So wow, Camille, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being with us, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
To get us started today, could you just talk to us about creativity as a hard skill?
Yeah, we're excited to share some of the things that we've been thinking about and discovering about why creativity is just an essential skill for anyone to be involved in a group of people, from community organizing to running a business to being competitive in the workforce. Part of this presentation came about after I was at a leadership forum and attended a business session, and they had CEOs of some huge regional companies. And one of the questions posed to like this panel of 5 people is, what is the essential skill that you need for the future workforce? And 4 out of 5 of them said creativity. And so after the event, when people were going around and introducing themselves, I didn't say, oh, I'm a nonprofit director. I said, I teach creativity. And it was such a different conversation then. And so we've been noodling around with this. And Camille and I combined kind of our understanding of the field and have some things to share with you all today.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and pop the slides up for us, that would be great. So yeah, I can click, right? Yeah, okay. So this is an image from our Creative Works program. Brooke, do you want to share a bit about Creative Works?
Yeah, one of the most applicable programs as part of Joe's, where we are leaning into teaching creativity, is with a young workforce. And we have a career-centered job training program called Creative Works, and it instructs young Prince Georgians age 17 to 24 in digital media production, theater tech, and the business of the arts. And so this has been a vital pathway for our organization to kind of lean into these, sharing creativity skills.
So we just wanted to define creativity as a hard skill. So it's specific abilities, capabilities, and skill sets that an individual can possess or demonstrate in a measured way. So think of critical thinking, think of problem solving or ideating. Those are the specific abilities associated with creativity. They're learnable and they're teachable, and they allow, within a job specific task, they allow for better communication, engagement, finding ways to connect with people. So if you think about preparing a presentation such as this one, using creativity to set up a space for the best use. If you have a staff meeting, choosing between a circle or a long line or a classroom style, using those different ideas to work that space out. And then Brooke will talk about program design a little bit later, but even just designing a program takes creativity. You need to know what problem you're trying to solve or what impact you're trying to make, and then thinking backwards on how to accomplish that.
Good. Well, practicing the arts is fundamental to creativity, but not everyone has to practice the arts to access creative skills. And there are many, learning the arts is just great education and human development. And so whenever people can practice it, they will hone their creative skills that are transferable. And these are skills like composition, project management, performance or presentation skills, brainstorming, and that help people access these, wonderful tools that are really vital for our future, and to kind of, be the type of creatives that can work on some of the biggest problems that face us now.
So, theory of application.
So the curiosity to progress is basically captures this idea of instilling a creative mindset where learning drives exploration and experimentation to discover that aha moment, and have a, feel what the variables are and the context and the goals, and work together till you get to that place that says, oh yeah, this is it. And sometimes there's mistakes, and mistakes become data to get to the results that you want. Because problem solving is one of the biggest outcomes of a creative mindset. It's really the engine of effective solution finding. And it helps people ask better questions, imagine new possibilities, test ideas, adapt, and create solutions that work. And this type of processes can be used across all situations, any industries. Now, AI can't do all of this, right?
So when we think about problem solving or using creativity to solve for complex problems or just work through any idea, there is an acting technique called the magic if. So you have a character, you read everything you can about the character, you read the script, you pay attention to what other characters are saying about your character, and they're still missing information, right? The magic if comes in when you put that character in a particular situation. So for example, Camille Kashaka is a Black woman doing arts, and people seem to not hate her too much. That's what we know about Camille. What if Camille had to go speak in front of 1 million people, even though she's an introvert. How would she react? Asking those kinds of questions helps you fill in a lot of blanks, and it helps you to solve more complex problems than you might have the information at your disposal. Boop. There we go. This is just a picture from one of Joe's programs. It's called Flourish, and it's an adult arts education program. These two ladies are working on collage, and they are working with one of our really close partners and volunteers and arts educators to just put images together and help keep the creative juices flowing. There we go. So in theory, you don't have to be in an arts organization to achieve the benefits of having creativity integrated into your workspace. It's contagious. When you're creative, it inspires other people to be creative, and it encourages teamwork and collaboration, because now you're like popcorning off of each other. That's our favorite nonprofit word today. You're motivating employees to take ownership of their roles, because now they get to have creative input in whatever they're doing. And then creative workplaces, they're more likely to attract and retain employees. It's just a much more positive workspace when you get to be creative.
This is an image of a Puerto Rican music group that performed at Joe's this summer, part of our series of Hot Joe's Summer. And a lot of artists have jobs in other industries. And I always like to think that, we're infiltrating and, bringing our skills to help just other work contexts. And that it's never too late to be creative or to be an artist. And that there's lifelong opportunities to plug in many areas across the county. So creativity is as a hard skill means it's taught, practiced, measured through repeated techniques. And that's why any medium of the arts is about mastering technique. You learn to knit, and you have a scarf that doesn't have mistakes in the rows. And maybe the first one has a couple little kinks, and you remember those kinks, and maybe you name them. And then the next scarf is a little different. But it's, repetition is powerful. And, the act of rehearsal is an important skill in creativity. The act of, being done and just presenting, that show must go on moment, are wonderful skills that you learn through this practice. That's not left to chance, unless that's really your model of practice is chance. Good. So a little bit more about some of these techniques. Mind mapping and brainstorming frameworks, and we have kind of a next slide on one of those. They're associative and visual methods to create a web of ideas. For example, if you were designing an after-school literacy program, you would probably start to make branches of all the different things that you would like to teach. And then you would, just kind of open up things that aren't structured, exploring ideas, understanding connections, and kind of thinking creatively on how you would design your after-school literacy program. And so the next slide has this mind mapping guide. And it can take off so many different ways. Most people kind of sit down with a dry erase board or those big sticky pads and markers and go to town. It's about generating ideas and possibilities without judging or, putting it's process, not just product. And then here are some specific brainstorming methods. Now, again, writing ideas kind of with mind mapping. I think we've all sat down with sticky notes and generated ideas and posted them and then gone back to find common themes. You can also have writing exercises where people sit down and have some sort of timed activity to generate things and kind of how you structure organizing those ideas. Dot voting. If anyone's ever been to a charrette with park and planning or neighborhood design center, they lead you through a process of visualizing a space or like a shared amenity and having a chance to be democratic about which is the priority, which resonate with a group of people. Round robin brainstorming, that's again popcorning with a group of people and seeing, what ideas come up and, catching that contagion of ideas when one person fires up and then other person kind of riffs on that idea and can go deeper. And then asking why. Sometimes the why can get you down to the root cause of a problem so that you can come up with more solutions.
This is a picture from our Open Studios tour last year, last year, and it happens every May. It's just a Gateway Arts District wide event where artists open their studios, and Joe's is one of them. So people who are not necessarily engaged in the arts every day get to come in and see artists doing their practice, their artistic practice. And a lot of times they get to engage a little bit too. Is there anything specifically you wanted to say about this, Brooke?
No, I think it's just an example of some of our arts education work and early education.
Great. So practice, applying creativity to real problems. I wanted to give a couple of examples of how you would use creativity to solve non-arts problems. So operationally, when you have limited space as a resource, but you have a number of people and a number of activities that need to happen. Think you have a staff meeting and you need breakout space for the different teams. Finding ways to utilize the space. Maybe you're just taking different corners. Maybe some group is using the hallway. Maybe you just combine all of the conversations together. That's an example. And then oftentimes, when you are solving one problem, you find out about another one, or you solve a different problem just by virtue of solving the first problem. So we have a coworker who uses a phrase, instead of killing two birds with one stone, she says, feeding two birds with one scone, which I think is just a creative riff on the idea itself. I just love it.
I love that too. I'm stealing that.
Please do.
Have it.
Save the birds.
We love nonviolence. So yeah, just keeping that in mind, that when you solve one problem, you might solve two or three or four. And then having a human-centered design, that means keeping people at the heart of all of your solutions. Asking, what impact does this have on the staff, on the participants, on the environment? And then minimizing any negative impact while still solving the problem.
This is an image of our creative work students who come into our program, and very few of them have any dance background. And then they end up in just a couple of months dancing, singing, acting, writing a script, producing films, making costumes, and having a full production. So accessing the practice of creativity, when you give yourself the time and space to do it, it's there, it's accessible. And so a couple strategies for implementing creativity in a group that you're part of, or your organization or business, is to have kind of internal creative workshops or innovation labs or charrettes or design sprints. It's like looking at these concepts, getting designing your time together with a group of people that is centered around creative output. And any of these 4 models, you can use some of the brainstorming or mind mapping techniques um, to guide your process. And in terms of, I kind of mentioned in terms of employees, but it can be substituted with a group of volunteers if you're doing advocacy or activism work. Is to pick some structured ideation techniques and practice them. Starting with something easy with a brainstorm warm up. Um, Picking something you want to solve and applying these techniques. Um, and it's really democracy in action. And some of this type of work helps to amplify the voices of everyone in the room, and it can enhance equity and inclusion. Um, Within a larger organization, these types of processes really encourage cross-departmental collaboration. Um, about a year ago, we kind of felt in our organization post-pandemic that we had some isolation because there's been so many pivots and shifts of how we were servicing our community. And we needed to make sure that our teams understood each other's programs as they had evolved over the last couple years. So we implemented an opportunity for people to design a cross collaboration and bringing different curriculums and service models amongst the departments. And so we had just some wonderful things like our Greenworks program, doing environmental education with our arts education program, the arts education program, working with the marketing team and those little kids making like amazing marketing content for social media, for just kind of internally. It was a riot and they loved it. And everybody walked away feeling happy and better connected. And so even as an arts organization, we have to practice creative skills so that we have a culture of creativity. And then what's most important is giving a shout out for creative solutions, just making sure you're supporting people, elevating some of the best ideas so that it inspires and maybe get a little friendly competition.
Sorry, I jumped the gun on this one.
All right.
So just a couple of myths about creativity. It's not only for artists. It's not that you're born creative or not. It can be taught. It can be learned. And then creativity is spontaneous and not structured. That's not true. You can structure your creativity. You can create boundaries that allow you then to be more creative because you have a framework within which to work. Brooke, did you have others?
Yeah, and sometimes when you have a tight structure, you can actually be very creative. If you think about that in like a visual arts concept, if you have one color, one type of two-dimensional surface and one three-dimensional object, and you have to make something wearable, I think we have so many competition shows on TV that provide tight structures. It's fascinating. Like if anyone has seen some of the cooking shows where they're given three food items and they have to create with, that is a great example of a structured creative exercise.
I'm just going to jump in here and say that I used to do that with my kid's dad. We would give each other random things and be like, okay, make dinner. And honestly, it was fantastic. So I highly recommend. So.
Yeah. I mean, when the pressure is there and you have to deliver, we can. And the more that you practice in the creative structures and the processes, then that allows you to be even more spontaneous with how you do that. And that's the spark, that's the innovation that comes from that practice of exploration.
I would also add that when you're in a group where people are being creative, that contagiousness that we talked about, that really shows up. So you maybe you're stuck, maybe you're like got some sort of writer's block or whatever, but you hear something from a partner that just blows your mind. And now your creative juices start flowing and you all, again, you can riff off of each other. So again, it's not that you have to be an artist. You can just sit next to someone. You could read a book that like opens your mind to new possibilities, and now you're changed. Since we're working with the library, there's a book that I no longer recommend, but was life-changing for me, Ender's Game. And when Ender realized that in space there is no up, whole perspective on life shifted. So, but again, I don't recommend that book anymore. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, thank you. Yeah, you can follow us on social media at Joe's Movement Emporium or at Creative Suitland. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I want to jump in because I love that early on you guys were referring to it as practicing the arts, learning the arts, teaching the arts. Because, and you guys mentioned this in the Mythbusters section, but I feel like people think that you just do, right? You do the arts. You have this natural people who were born with the ability to sing, sometimes think that they can go into it and they can become stars because they just have this natural ability. So my question is, how do you all deal with, or rather, do you guys have any advice for people who may come to you guys with these natural talents, maybe thinking that they won't have to work as hard because they have this talent, and then they start to lose steam a little bit. I don't know if you've experienced that with people, but they start to lose steam a little bit once they realize the amount of work that they have to put into it despite the talent that they were born with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the number of dance company work things that I've done, the best dancer is not always the one with the technique. It's the one who shows up early and rehearses the best. Practice and rehearsal is everything in the arts. You can't excel in your mastery of the technique without that. And people who have amazing talents, if they don't apply it through practice, they will be surpassed by others who just grow with practice.
Ditto. I would add that challenges usually, if you frame something as a challenge and not as a problem, that's usually helpful in motivating someone and working together to create a plan, maybe not like a performance improvement plan, but just a plan to get it together. Having them buy into whatever the plan is helpful. But I think you have to be self-motivated. You can't really manage motivation into a person.
But I do want to emphasize that creativity is not only found in the arts. Like my partner does coding and is a software engineer. And he has to be creative in how he approaches it because there's just not one path to solve everything. And so he's got to brainstorm and look at ideas, and that's a field where you make a lot of mistakes and you get blocked, and it's broken code. And so and he talks about how right now, especially in an era of rapidly growing technological skills, that the underpinning of people to make those skills that make technology work better is creativity and communication.
Yeah, I talk a lot about my job and just how much creativity it takes, and I'm a writer. I have an MFA in creative writing. And sometimes when people be like, have you done much writing lately? And I'm like, actually not really, but not in a complaining way. And like my job feeds so much of my creative spirit, like in a very happy way. And so I think that's something for people who are watching to think about is the ways that creativity, and I really appreciate you talking about this, the ways that creativity is at play in your life, even if you are not actively doing like painting a picture, like you are and if, as for our listeners, what are the ways that it's showing up in your life already? And what are ways, and I'm hoping that this presentation, you've got something to take away with how you can build and enhance those creative spaces if they're not showing up for you as much as you'd like. I actually have a lot of wonderful comments from viewers that have been coming in the whole time that you've been presenting, and including the question, but there's been a lot of wonderful comments, which I'll try to make sure that we get over to you if we don't get to talk about them right now. But one of the questions we have is, could you please share some recommendations for individuals who were involved in equity initiatives within their organizations, but are now facing challenges? And then they have a follow-up question to this. So I'll let you think about that. Okay, could you please share some recommendations for individuals who are involved in equity initiatives within their organizations, but are now facing challenges? And then the follow-up question is, would Joe's Movement Emporium be a good creative outlet? So there's these two side-to-side questions.
For the equity question, I think this is a perfect opportunity to use creativity in your role, because now you've got to change language. You have to change your approach. The whole pivot is where you use your creativity the most. So what is the end goal? You want equity. What does equity mean? That means everyone has the same ability to accomplish or achieve whatever outcome they desire, right? Everybody has the same opportunities afforded to them. Or they get the same playing field, and then they have the opportunity to achieve it. Now, if the organization is not investing so much in that anymore, is there a way to achieve that without that level of investment? Is there a different conversation that can be had where you get the same outcome that you're looking for? I don't want to snitch on us too much, but we've had to change some language in our public facing materials so that we are not a target, but we can still do the programming that's important to us. We can still serve our mission. But we've had to be very, very creative with how we say we're doing what we're doing.
I would make the argument, though, that within this environment, we have been pushing a lot of those initiatives for so long that a lot of us take them for granted, like in the sense that we're already doing the work. And so whether or not we say we're doing the work or not, I think it really comes out in the work that we're doing. And so I think at one point, we say it, but when are we doing it? I think the more important piece is whether we're doing it rather than if we're just saying that we're doing it. I think people will see that we're doing it in the work that we do. And I think that sometimes, especially now in this challenging environment, like we say it differently, but we're also still doing the work. We haven't changed. That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And to some extent, in some of the language changes we had to do, we found some really good solutions that maybe were a better description. And we're still doing the work. And we serve who we serve in our county, which is incredibly diverse. And a lot of organizations are very inclusive, and that's just fundamental. I think that we are a good outlet for creativity. We have some adult programming, some youth programming. We're mostly a multidisciplinary arts center, so there's a lot of different access points. But a lot of our work is to serve artists to have a home to create, present, and teach. And so we don't have as robust of a public schedule of activities that some of our peer organizations or amazing county entities like Park and Planning. But we hope you'll explore what we do have, especially a lot of our performances and events.
I have to ask, what is a charrette? Like, I assume it sounds like a charade, but please.
Good. So a charrette is when you gather people around a design concept. It's used a lot in community and urban planning. So they're where they'll have some initial designs and then share some images and might have some people that are there to sketch out some images as you discuss it. So we recently had one in the Suitland area where Park and Planning led this community design process for envisioning an arts district in the greater Suitland area. And so they started with sharing images from other communities to find out what audience would be interested in. So they had anywhere from parks to art centers to cafes to public art. They had all these great posters, and they gave you dots, and you went around and voted for what you really want to see in your community. And then they took kind of the most voted on ideas, and they asked for some spaces. So there was a lot of ideation and brainstorming. And then they actually had some ideas to present in the follow-up meeting, and people weighed in on that.
I want to talk more about a quote, something that you said. You said boundaries can allow you to be more creative. And the first thing that came to mind for me was the wonderful poet Gwendolyn Brooks, who wrote in sonnet forms. And if you have not had the chance to check out Gwendolyn Brooks, everybody, amazing. I read Gwendolyn Brooks and I was like, oh, I too shall write sonnets. There's a reason why none of you have heard of me and you've all heard of her, but it was so amazing when you try to work in that framework. So again, whatever I'm speaking about writing, but so poetry, but somebody else, but to have a framework actually is incredible. How much I experienced it, instead of being limiting, it actually was like flourishing. And so I just would hope that you guys, I would love to hear from both of you a little bit more about that, about why is it that having this framework can really allow people to have their creativity flourish?
I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with the possibilities and you don't know where to start, and having just like a prompt or a single idea helps you just jumpstart the idea. There was a designer that I used to work with at another organization who started using drapes and curtains to make clothes because it offered a new level of design. Like I don't know what you're called, like the grommets at the top of the curtain. Became like an integral part of her design for a little bit because she was only using drapes. I think she must have been like upcycling or something. I don't know why she did this, but it changed her look for that season. And it's brilliant,
Yeah, I would echo that and say that having a container for our ideas helps to sift through ideas and come out with the ones that feel, authentic and unique for whatever you want to express. In dance, there can be all kinds of boundaries or structures to help create within. You can limit yourself to create 4 movements and sequence them together in one way and then reverse it. So you can play around with the techniques of your craft in different ways. And that's what someone will do to discover how like what happens to make the song or create the dance or produce the article of clothing.
Yeah,
I find myself overwhelmed with just like, what am I watching for when I eat dinner? What show am I going to watch? There's just too many. Sometimes I have to pull back and say, Camille, you are looking for comedy today. And then like narrowing it down helps me move forward.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I wrote that down and we're getting some nice comments too from people. I can't wait to apply this to the field of diplomacy and soft power is one of the comments here about that.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk, I think we touched on a little bit, but I do want to take a minute to talk more fully and hear from both of you about Joe's Movement Emporium and Creative Zootland, and really all that you're bringing to the region. It's not even just those areas. So because I realize not all of our viewers necessarily know all the things that you offer, and so could you take a few minutes and share with us about both of those organizations? Maybe Brooke, you want to, I don't know, do you want to give us a little 2-minute history? Okay.
Sure. I mean, we're one organization with 2 venues. We started Joe's in Mount Rainier in one storefront space in 1995. And then we purchased a warehouse in the community and had help from so many people to create a permanent home and open up a full multidisciplinary arts center. We have programs in workforce development, job training, support to artists, and an environmental program. And in 2020, in partnership with the Prince George's County Revenue Authority, we were invited to inhabit a vacant space and also bring our practice of our programs and our use of space to be a community amenity in an area that's undergoing rapid transformation. And so Creative Suitland Arts Center was created and opened in February 2020. And then we had a little bit of a disruption there, but we came back and been going strong.
Talk about using creativity. Everybody, think about how you and your team and your family and your friends and your job managed March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December 2020. That was incredible, the pivots that we all did.
Yeah.
You guys talked a bit about how you use creativity in non-arts fields. So I was wondering, how can people put those creative outputs on their resume, right? Or any sort of LinkedIn, wherever they need to, if they're given an elevator pitch, how can they describe their creative work without saying, I'm creative? I did art once. I made a brain, what was it called? A brain map?
Yeah, mind map.
Mind map, yes.
Yeah.
That's such a good question.
It
I think
is.
how I would like to see it is under whatever job you're describing, you use the words created this, solved this problem, designed this program. So that's how I would like to see it. I don't know how I would put it on my resume because it's so arts-based. I would hope that, well, Brooke hired me. Did it look like I was creative?
Yes, of course. Yeah, your theater background, your lighting design.
Okay.
She sent me a PowerPoint of why I should hire her. Now that's creative.
Everybody take a note.
That sold me. It was so great. And what she would bring to the job. So yeah, a PowerPoint would be good. But I mean, I think, under different jobs and the responsibilities and accomplishments, you could highlight, in different bullets, maybe a special presentation that was developed and received, or a facilitation around creativity that occurred in a job. And certainly, if you have a creative practice, it should be on your resume, because who doesn't love an accomplished person that when you read was 7 years international concert pianist? I mean, if they're at that level of their craft, they have discipline, they have commitment, they have gone the full circle in one area of expertise. And again, those skills transfer. If someone has such a deep commitment to performing the piano, they're going to be pretty comfortable performing in other area duties. I think arts people make incredible additions into healthcare systems. Pick an industry. I think it's enhanced by people with creative backgrounds.
I just want to add that I think using the cover letter would probably be a really good vehicle for conveying that information, because you get to explain what your skills that are on the resume, how they are transferable to this job. And you can explain this. Yeah, I was I don't know, I can't think of a job. I was a snow blower, and here's how those skills, how I was able to not fall and bust my behind every winter, how that's transferable in this new job. I don't know, I'm just looking out the window.
I think that's a good example though, because it really is like, how do you make contacts? How do you connect with people? What are the skills that you use to, build relationships? And I think it's a great example and something for us all to think about. And I really appreciate this presentation for the respect that it's giving creativity and for the way it's helping us all realize how we're using it and how we can better frame and appreciate it. And we actually have a comment about creative endeavors here. So let me just share this. Creative endeavors count as a reemployment activity when you are on Maryland unemployment. So this writer is creating their logo, brainstorming, and designing a website, including today's session, etc. So there's there's a lot out there. So we are the Office of Human Rights. Tiana and I represent the Office of Human Rights, and we do a lot of programming. We do a lot of programming with the library. We work with Joe's, and one of the things that we really look at is, we care about programming that talks about social justice, or that we're trying to elevate social justice messaging. And I see, so much of what we do, we are inviting artists to join us. We have had textile artists, we have had dancers, we have had many, many, many writers, we have had visual artists. And so can you talk to us about the ways that the arts and social justice intertwine?
Yeah, so they are not, I wouldn't even say they're intertwined. I would say that they're the same DNA. Every major social justice movement in the US has been parallel to an arts movement. The civil rights movement had an arts movement. The Black Power movement had an arts movement. Black Lives Matter has an arts movement. I think so much of the messaging of the movements come from artists. The messages come from songs. They come from visual artwork. They come from the plays. They come from the poetry of the time. I think the people who are the social justice activists oftentimes are also artists. And so that's just how they're expressing the message. That's how they're getting it to the people. That, you can't have one without the other.
I remembered the other day, Facebook gave me a memory of the march, the march after someone's inauguration. And it was me and my best friend, and she had a pink hat on. And the hunt for one of those pink hats that day was a very memorable experience. But the two are so combined, of these pink cat ear hats of knitters and crocheters and so many people. But that hat just made me, it just filled me with such good feeling and memories of that day, and how we couldn't couldn't even talk because we had yelled so loud. But but everybody wanted one of those hats, and it was like, where'd you get your hat? How'd you get your hat? And to me, it's synonymous with that day. So
yeah.
When I was in grad school, I wrote a paper on how the arts are the emotional historical documents. Like you can get the information on what happened during a period of time, but you don't really know what the impact of it is unless you explore the writings of the time, the comedy of the time, the artistic output. You don't really know how people reacted without that. So well, that I'm about to get pretty dark, but things happen. But you don't really know the impact of it without the storytellers who are the artists.
I'd love to know, why is it so important for creativity to be viewed as a hard skill? Like, is creativity less respectable, out in the world if it's considered a soft skill?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the purpose of why we pitched the workshop is we feel that it is not elevated enough for the urgency that we have right now and the different pressures facing us to navigate a very difficult social, political, economic terrain right now. And that, you know, the need to wrap the work with value um, kind of is important for my lifetime. And you know, there's times when people have thought, oh, well, the arts, they're just a luxury. And really, they're essential infrastructure for community. They're essential infrastructure for good business and good organizations. And it's absolutely vital that we um, elevate this as a core skill to train in. And I think a lot of people are struggling in communication right now, and that this is one of the methods that can assist with improving communication that really adapts to everybody's needs and can make accommodations in creative ways so that you don't just have to be verbal to communicate. And the arts provide, or sorry, creativity provides that pathway for being truly inclusive.
I'm actually really curious. Both of you come from arts backgrounds, your educational backgrounds, and I'm just curious for you, do you think was pivotal? We have a lot of young people who listen to these, and you know, if someone wants to, you know, like you mentioned, your partner was a coder. My partner is a graphic designer, and the way that arts can ultimately translate into careers. What was it in your own kind of development that really pushed you to the direction that you're in? And is there something like that you didn't think was important then that is really important now?
I mean, I thought I was just going to have a dance company, but we had no good space to rehearse and call a home. And we needed to innovate on the economic structures for dance. And who was dancing? And I felt like we got to have everybody dancing. It can't just be for dancers. So we need to have new program models that are about everybody dancing. And so that's why we ended up calling our space Joe's for, you know, everyone's a Joe and everybody can dance. So that we demystified these um, exclusive pathways to being a mover. And we opened it up beyond kind of classic Western stagecraft to make sure we looked at all types of dance as valid forms to study, not only as a professional, but just for your personal enjoyment. And now reports show that social dancing is one of the best ways to retain memory skills and prevent dementia.
Audrey, can you say the question again?
Well, I guess I was just, you know, a lot of people have a hard time translating school to actual practice. So, you know, what was it, you know, are there things that you learned back then that you're like, now I can apply it? Or what was it that really made you think this is the direction I want to go?
I think I was lucky because I was an arts kid. Like there was always some sort of arts programming in school. So, you know, in elementary and middle school, I played the viola. In high school, I was an actor, and that's what I thought I was going to be, but your girl wasn't that great at it. So, we had to pivot. But yeah, it's always been an option. And I come from a family that didn't. Now, they were like, you sure you don't want to be a lawyer? But after I said no, they were like, okay, well, we're going to support you doing whatever it is you want to do. So it never, it was kind of just like what brings me the most joy is what I'm going to make the career out of. And so that's how I got here. I'm very lucky. The how I actually got to this point was not being good at acting.
All right, well, we are almost out of time. So let me just ask my colleagues really quick. Do you, either one of you have a question you want to close out with, or give you a chance?
I'm just going to ask, because I'm curious. I know when you're having a rough time, which we are in a rough time, we won't go dark, but let's just say, what do you do to bring yourself joy and creativity? What helps you spark that in the now?
I think reading. So it's not necessarily me practicing art, but it's me engaging with art, and it's the quietest, it's the most introverted one. So that's mine.
Oh gosh, I've got so many go-to things. Any sort of movement and dancing, cooking, like doing a puzzle is like putting together a visual art piece. I just did one with my stepmother and it was fabulous to do. Reading. I love to participate in any creative outlet. When I can give myself the time to participate in our own programs, it's really fun.
We're gonna
add learning something new. So I might not commit to it. I learned how to knit. I had a blast learning how to knit. The scarf it's 5 years in the making, and I'm not going to finish the scarf. But learning it was very exciting.
Yeah. And I just have to say, going to performances, I could go to one a day, and that would be my life. It'd be so good.
I love those, and people are commenting too about like that for them engaging with art as well, seeing people enjoying their craft. And Camille, I just want to say, I think I really resonate with what you're talking about too, about learning something. And I think the puzzle, like when I think about sometimes learning how to do something, it's like such a puzzle for my mind, in addition to whatever the art is. And so I think that's what I'm hearing for you with like knitting. It's like you're figuring out the problem, or you're solving a problem. Okay, problem solved. That's awesome. Now I'm going to go find something else.
Yeah.
And so Brooke, you're standing in face kind of person. And so I decided to share that with you. And I shared earlier, Camille, I don't know if you saw, but you had greetings from a fellow soror. That's too many R's. I have a speech problem. There's way too many R's in the word soror for me to say out loud. But hopefully you saw that and you saw the greetings. We are at time. And so I'm just going to take a couple of minutes for those watching. I'm going to say out loud some of the things we've been sharing on the screen to make sure that for those of you who are not reading your screens are still going to get these links. So I just want to take a moment first before I do that, though, to thank Camille and Brooke for joining us today and for all that you both are doing in the community. Like, it is really extraordinary. And I hope that, well, it's really great to have you. And for those watching, and I want to say to you, I hope that you're able to take the time to check out Joe's Movement Emporium. That is at Joe's Movement, all one word, all swished together, no punctuation, .org, joesmovement.org, to learn more about them. And you can also go to Creative Zootland, although as Brooke has explained, the same organization, 2 locations, but creativezootland.org as well. So all one word, all swished together. And we also hope that we are able to see you again at one of our many events, including next week. We welcome back W. Ralph Eubanks for a Lunch and Learn. We're super stoked to have him back on his new book, When It's Darkness on the Delta. And we hope that you're able to take the conversation we had today to just think about creativity and how it shows up in your life and how you can enhance it and highlight all the different ways that you're already being creative and feel the joy for how it shows up for you in unexpected ways. Please visit civilrights.mypgc.us and pgcmls.info. I probably could have said those slightly faster, but hopefully you can slow it down and get those to learn about the Office of Human Rights and the library system. We have lots going on for you every single day. Again, thank you everybody for being with us. Stay safe out there. We know it's super icy, so take care of yourselves, and bye everyone.